Welcome to the Sellernomics podcast, sharing valuable tips and information in the Amazon and e-commerce space. Each week, we deliver the best interviews with some of the top Amazon personalities in the industry to help you grow your business. Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. And now, here is your host, Rob Stanley.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2. This is going to be a great one. I got Jana Krekic from YLT Translations. And before I say hi to you, Jana, she's the second guest. So I was talking about this with Ryan, and that she's always, the last couple of podcasts I've done, she's always been my last guest. And so I wanted to make sure she was on early and on almost first. So welcome to the podcast, Jana.
Hi, Rob. Thank you so much. And I love the fact that I'm a second guest. I'm super excited. As you said, I was one of the last ones on all of your podcasts, so I feel very honored. I have made a progress on the scale, obviously. So thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So yeah, once again, I welcome everybody to the Sellernomics podcast. I'm Rob Stanley, your host and owner of the Sellernomics podcast. Yay! I actually own the podcast now, which we talked about with Ryan, and that was super fun. So Jana's a super awesome person. I love talking to her. She has all kinds of great information. And so, you know, a lot of people, and just so everybody understands, like they think, oh, translations. Okay, she'll translate my stuff. There's a lot more to this. There's a lot more to the translations than you think. And not just for you US listeners, if you're looking to expand. And we're going to kick this right off with a bunch of questions, Jana, and let's get right to it. So we're always talking about Amazon. And what are some of the newest marketplaces on Amazon that you guys are kind of reaching out to? And of course, we'll dive in later about how YLT Translations helps and what they can do for you. But just kind of cover what's some of the newest marketplaces on Amazon right now.
One of the newest marketplaces, definitely Amazon Turkey. Amazon Turkey, interestingly enough, like there was a website, Amazon Turkey was available for a couple of years now, but it just had recently been kind of pushed out to the audience, and you know, Amazon kind of pushing sellers to go there. So Amazon Turkey is really interesting, and Amazon Sweden and Amazon Poland have been pretty much new. But what's very interesting is that from all of these like top 3, like that's, I like to call it like a rising star marketplaces, Poland has been super interesting for people because Polish market as like an e-commerce marketplace has 12,000 online stores, and Allegro is their biggest marketplace, and it has basically it's in the top 10 of the worldwide marketplaces, right after Tmall and Shopee. And that's like mind-blowing information, because when you think of Poland, first of all, you don't know much about this country, but second of all, you're like, well, this is interesting because you would not expect that from that country, but there is a really good e-commerce penetration over there, and it's very strategically nicely placed in Europe, so it's kind of close to everything. So even before Amazon, like a lot of big international companies have had their stock there in their warehouses because it was much cheaper to ship out from Poland than it was from Germany or France or some other countries in that region. So I would say that those 3 marketplaces are definitely trending, and I think that Amazon will be pushing more and more marketplaces. I'm definitely curious to see what's going to happen in South America, like Brazil, and Colombia. I'm pretty much sure that they're gonna, you know, tackle their fingers over there and launch something very interesting as well.
Yeah, no, I I agree with that. And they're definitely, I mean, Amazon's trying to expand as fast as they can to conquer the world, obviously, but put marketplaces everywhere to try to help everybody. And that's absolutely true. So a lot of times, Jana, we kind of know a lot of the US sellers, the first place they expand to is Canada. That's kind of like a basic, that's their very first one. And then usually they kind of look at Europe as the next choice. So, and Europe, I mean, you know, obviously people know Europe isn't just a few countries. It's very, very diverse, lots of different languages, lots of translations that need to happen if you're going to sell in, you know, different areas there. So are there any new regulations when it comes to the European marketplace that you could share with us? And by the way, just real quick, I forgot to tell everybody. So yeah, I got Jana on, and we are talking about how to scale your Amazon business on new marketplaces. I forgot to mention that part. It's been a day, let me tell you. But yes, why don't you go ahead and tell us more about, are there any new regulations kind of going on with the European market that you could share with us?
Yes. So what's very interesting is that these regulations have already been there, for a couple of years, but nobody was paying attention to that. And Amazon just gonna let all products be shipped as they are with the packaging and only English only written on the packaging. But now a very big problem is that if you want to ship out your, let's say, beauty products to France, there has to be a French either seal and peel etiquette or whatever. It has to have French instructions written on the packaging. If you don't have French language on your packaging, the product will not reach France, and they will stop at the border. They'll be like, there's no French on the packaging. So basically, if you're selling, let's say, if we talk about Pan EU, you have to have all languages written on your packaging. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to ship the product to that specific country. And that is now absolutely obligatory for all EU countries. So if you haven't done that yet, I strongly suggest you do so. And a lot of sellers who are just going to have like the whole English like packaging, you don't have to change the packaging. A lot of them use just like seal and peel labels, and that's how they solve the problem. But this is one of the very, very, very mandatory things that you have to be aware of. Otherwise, you will not be able to ship your products anywhere in Europe.
Yeah, and that seems like, a lot of times I'll buy stuff, not even off Amazon, sometimes just get retail things, and I'll see it in different languages. And that kind of is interesting to see, probably more with some, when it comes to retail, I'm referring to. Usually it's more with the bigger brands are doing that on retail. But so do you think like when somebody like a US company is starting to design their package, would it be good to maybe start with those if they think that at some point they're going to expand outside the United States?
Yes, definitely. I would say that, like if you have your packaging, or if you want to just put like a shorter version of your instructions, then you just put like 5 or 6 languages. Like when you buy like a shampoo, at least like in Europe, when you like, turn the other way around and you're like, read like how to use it on the back, there's like 5 or 6 languages, and the instruction is not that long. So it's not going to be like 300 words. It's going to be literally like 3 sentences with like very small font, and they're going to be there, and it's readable in 6 different languages. So like if you say like there's a shampoo, like 100 milliliter shampoo, that's like not a big bottle, that can fit like 6 different languages. And I'm pretty sure you can do the same for your product. So it's not necessary to have like, a big like novel written in your instructions. I was just gonna focus on the main key points of your instructions, and just gonna, localize it. And I understand why Amazon is doing it, because sellers love when you speak their language. And I know also like when somebody reaches out to us and then they're like, do you have like a, I don't know, Italian speaker like on your team, would like to speak with them because we're not so like, fluent in English or anything. People love when you speak in their language. And I just wanted to mention the last thing that happened, that was that you could actually reach out to the consumer that left you a bad review, and you could actually send them a message. And I suppose, right now it's a template and you cannot change the language and you cannot localize it, but I'm pretty sure that this will be available in the near future. And as soon as that becomes available, I strongly suggest that you write a nice message or a note to reach out to a client in their own language if you're selling on international marketplaces.
Yeah, sorry, I'm going to find an example where they need YLT translation. So I was trying to find it here to kind of use. So just so people understand. So I can't remember if it was this particular item I just bought off Amazon recently, but I was reading through the instructions and it was so difficult to follow the instructions, Jana. And we're talking, and I don't want to call them out or what the product is yet because I haven't found it, but I will. Anyways, point being though, that, people that are selling items, if you're going to sell on an international marketplace and you're going to offer it in other countries where they're going to need instructions, you got to make sure it's right. Like I was really struggling with these instructions that I got to be able to assemble this item that I purchased. And man, it is just hard. And it's really hard. And I almost at one point was just going to package it back up and send it back because I was like, what are they trying to say? And it wasn't something that's easy where it's like, okay, well, obviously there's a hole there and a bolt goes in it. It wasn't quite that simple. And it's very frustrating.
I know. And just imagine like a French consumer buying, I don't know, something that you have to assembly, or maybe something that's like a baby care or something, and they don't understand. And then they're like, well, I'm not going to give this to my baby because I'm not 100% sure I understand what this seller's ingredients are. And then they're just going to be like, I'm going to buy something that it's like in proper French. They don't care about like, conveying the message from the seller bubble. They just want like straight facts and to understand how the product works. And I remember there was a case study we did a couple of years ago where we took an example of, it's like a nursery bag, and it has like different like functionalities. It can like, you can even like place it. You can even like assemble it so it's some sort of like a table or something. It's very weird, but it was very popular in the French market. And then we compared like various products, absolutely same products. And the worst product was actually the cheapest one. It was identical as 4 other products, but it was cheapest. But the listing was horrible. So even if it was the cheapest product, people didn't buy it that much. It had like maybe like 4 reviews, and the more expensive products were selling very nicely. They had like good explanations. They made sense to the native speaker, and people were buying that baby bag instead of this one that was the cheapest, but had a pretty, poorly translated listing, probably like Google translated one. And you really want to understand how this product works, So whenever you have a product that you have to do it, you have to do something to it so it becomes something else, or maybe like beauty products or baby care products that you really want to know what's inside. You really want to be crystal clear. And this, even if you like read this in English and it's not crystal clear to you, would you buy it? Like, I wouldn't buy something that I'm gonna like inject in my eyes and then like get like swelled up or something. Like, I'm not gonna buy that because I don't understand it. And people are highly unlikely to buy what they don't understand 100%. And a very important thing is that I read that it is in a Harvard Business Review, and it says that 15% basically from the whole planet speak only English. So you're basically targeting every third person on the marketplace instead of every person, if you are doing a bad job with the translations, or even if you're leaving English translations as they are. And the times have now changed. And let's say in Germany, like the Germans really like when something is written in German, but when it comes to like fitness products, they love using English words and English keywords. So that's kind of new, because usually you would not use any English words in any of the listings. But like now for German listings, like resistant bands and stuff like that, smartwatch and stuff, they use English words, which is kind of unusual, saying that the culture changes, but they still want the essence to be written in German, for instance.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I hadn't heard that, but let's also talk a little bit about like not just listings, but packaging. And like I was just talking about like instructions and how those really affect, the quality of the experience that somebody has when they're dealing with your product. And that can really, I was just saying, like, I was having a really hard time trying to put this thing together. And in my head, I'm kind of like, you know what? Should I go leave them a negative review? I'm kind of struggling to do this. So before you answer that,
right,
and talk a little bit about maybe how some of these incorrect translations, not only are listing, but maybe on the product packaging or on the instructions, can affect your reviews on Amazon. Before we talk about that, we're going to take a quick break and from our sponsor, GETIDA.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
Yeah, so be sure to head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. We have a great offer there for you. First $400 in reimbursements without any fees at all. And so, yeah, we were just talking with Jana from YLT Translation. Sorry, my head's not translating today. YLT Translations. And we were just about ready to cover how basically having incorrect information on your listing, or incorrect information on your packaging, or even incorrect information on your instructions can affect your reviews on Amazon. Now, maybe let's talk about maybe the European market when it comes to translation. I think you also have mentioned before we started the show that there's some things happening with reviews over there. So why don't you cover kind of both of those? How can it affect your rankings or your reviews? And then also what's some of the things going on in the European market?
Yeah, well, definitely a good thing that global reviews are back on European marketplace. I'm pretty sure that Amazon has been testing a lot of stuff for EU marketplaces as well. And as you know, when it comes to regulations, European marketplaces are like lighting years away from US restrictions. So basically, a lot of things still fly on the EU, which definitely don't in the US marketplace. There was like, so they say it was a glitch. I'm pretty sure they were just testing it to see like how well the people would respond to just having like a local review versus the global review. So thank God that global reviews are back. So that means that if you have like 10K reviews in the States, when you launch it in Germany, you're gonna keep those 10K reviews definitely. But what's gonna happen with you if you don't get like proper, listings, the keywords done, and follow up emails and inserts and other stuff, they don't make much sense to you. You're gonna lose your rankings. You're gonna get like bad reviews, and as you know, like reviews, you cannot fix them. Now you can reach out to consumers. If you're brand registered, you can reach out to consumers and ask them, to maybe change their mind or fix it somehow. But what's very important is that you will have a lot of negative review if you try to address someone in their own language, and then somebody will be totally puzzled and being like, like using Chinglish basically for reaching out to other people in Europe. So that's really essential that you know what you're doing and don't use Google Translate, not at all, because they don't know how to talk to persons. Like for instance, in Germany, it's very formal way of addressing someone with a follow-up email is quite interesting, and not using their first name but their last name. So you never want to be kind of more intimate with the consumer that, for instance, you would be like in the States or any other country. Like in Germany, that's not acceptable, and they'll be like seen as very rude. So you definitely want to avoid that. And it's very important to just keep an eye on the reviews, because a lot of times you can get some really good information and some really good ideas how you can actually later optimize the listings with something that you read in the review. Maybe like I recently saw there was like a product. It was like a marker, like so you could write it like on the board with it, and then somebody said that like it's such a strong brown color that they could repaint the basically the legs of the chair. It's like that good, and it used to like fix the chair. So that's interesting. And then that seller reached out to us to optimize it and to add like in the fifth bullet that it could be have like various uses like blah blah blah, and then he added whatever he saw in the review. That was quite interesting. He got some new keywords. So that's really interesting. I mean, reviews are very, very good. And you can also like see tons of keywords by using, the review downloader from Helium 10, for instance, and similar tools. It's always a cool thing to have, and you can like optimize it that way. And you can definitely see like how differently people use the product. And that differs from marketplace to marketplace, as it does, the interest for the product. Let's say like smart watches, for instance, they are not that well ranked in Germany, but they're fantastically ranked in the UK, better than in the US, for instance. So every marketplace is very, very different. This is some data that we found in brand analytics, and it's very unusual how to see like what's popular, what's not. And also like one of the very interesting things that we also recently found out, this is actually from my speech at Prosper, is that ACs, like portable ACs, are number 10 like search frequency in Germany, and they're like 1,000 and something in the US, and they're like 2,000 something in the UK. So they're selling like crazy in Germany. And why is that? That is because in Germany, we didn't have a lot of really hot climates. Like the country was just not in that heat area at all. And so a lot of buildings and apartments, they don't have ACs in their apartments because they was just not used for them. But now, considering the climate change and everything, and they're very old buildings and you cannot install the proper AC in the building, they're reaching out to portable ACs, and that's why the sales have been sky high. So if you're selling a portable AC, I suggest you go definitely and sell it in Germany.
Yeah, I think we use an AC out here in California. It's cooking. So the whole West Coast is.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good information to know. And man, I might have to get one of those dark markers. I got a new puppy and it's chewing the furniture. So I'm going to need that
See?
coming up here too, for sure. So yeah, so everybody, please hit that like and subscribe if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook or any other platforms. We really do appreciate it. And again, I got Jana from, she's founder of YLT Translations here with me today, talking about how to scale your Amazon business on new marketplaces. And we are going to cover also a little bit about, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jana, there's something going on with like HTML code. I think, didn't Amazon set a date that all HTML code had to be out of descriptions or something like that? Why don't you cover that a little bit and tell us kind of what's going on?
Yeah, so that's also another way of Amazon pushing you to to register for brand registry. So basically, they're just gonna make you have the notepad look like product description without any paragraphs, without anything being written in bold. Basically, this is their way of pushing you into having A+ content and going into brand registry, as I said. So basically what they did is the UK, they decided to ban it middle June. But in the US, I think that the deadline for that is like 10th of July or something like that. It's beginning of July, definitely. And they didn't say anything about European marketplaces, other European marketplaces. So I think that, followed by all other late arrivals in terms of restrictions, we're still probably going to be able to see HTMLs. And on the UK and US, probably that would not be possible after July the 5th or the 6th. I don't remember, but it's definitely not later than 10th. So if you have just HTMLs, like be sure to, if you are not going to be brand registered, just make sure that you kind of optimize them the best way possible, so that even if there's like this notepad text without any paragraphs or no sense whatsoever, that it has relevant information, but because it will still be ranked. So make sure that you still use keywords. And I mean, the best thing would be for you to register for brand registry and have A+ content. But if you don't, just don't be surprised when you have like tons of text just gonna put like this and it doesn't look pretty. So I would just go for product descriptions being as short as possible and making sense and still keeping some very important keywords.
Which is probably good advice in general anyways. Even when there was HTML available, that's always a good point to have. Yeah, absolutely. And so one of the other things we've been talking about is, Europe, obviously quite a bit. That, like we said, the kind of the stages we see with Amazon sellers, they go to Canada and then they start going to Europe. And but there is a little bit of difference in Europe, right? So they have to get it into different warehouses over there. So if I have inventory, let's say in the UK warehouse, and I need to get it to the Germany warehouse, kind of what's the fastest method for that?
Right. So everybody has been complaining about, post-Brexit time, and, the Brits are just kind of devastated because of all that happened. And so what happens is that if you want to ship the products from Europe to UK, it takes like 2 months. It's just like ridiculous. It takes a little bit less if you ship it from the UK to, let's say, Germany, but it still takes a long time. Like I've talked to some sellers, it takes like at least a month for the products to arrive to Germany. So what a little hack with that is, and what people figured out that's working, is to ship their products via Netherlands to Germany, and because that way it takes like a week. And the best thing of all is, like, you don't need to have a Dutch VAT or anything. You can just send their goods to just gonna use that, route and get them to Germany. You just need to have the German VAT, and as if you were sending like directly to Germany, but sent via the Netherlands. So it cut time, and it's just an amazing hack because it saves you like so much time. Like it gets there literally like 4 times faster than the usual way how would you do it.
That's perfect. We're dropping tips. That's a good one, actually. And just so everybody knows, the other thing is when you're transferring inventory, obviously things can get lost, and Amazon's going to owe you for those. So you got to file a claim with GETIDA, because we do handle Europe, obviously. So yeah, one of the things that I also want to talk to you a little bit about, and we were talking a little bit prior to this, is about some of the localization problems when it comes to listings and translations and things like that. So we do need to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, GETIDA. So hang tight.
Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
Yeah, so please head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. We have a great offer for you. $400, first $400, whether you get it in a day or we get you the $400 in a year. It's no fees on that first $400. So head on over there and sign up at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. So I was just talking to Jana from YLT Translations, and we were covering some localization problems. So why don't you dive into a little bit on what some of the problems are going on right now with the localization?
Right. So localization is very important. And I know that sellers don't think about that because they just think that the language barrier is like this horrible, horrible thing. And it's basically not. It's pretty much straightforward when you have someone to help you with that the right way. But localization basically means that you cannot say things the same way that you are saying, let's say in the States. The States have like this like fluffy and salesy style. And that doesn't work in Europe. Like people in Europe, like in France or Germany or Italy, they basically love to see the products, like what they do. And when they read something which kind of sounds is like kind of too good to be true, it doesn't make much sense for them. So that approach does not work in Europe. Or like to just use like a plastic example, like we had one listing in the A+ content. It said in the States, it says it's a pasta product. And it says like, we're making pasta that will make you feel like you're in Bella Italia. And this product was supposed to launch in Italy. So when you say like something like that to Italians, like you're going to feel like you're in Bella Italia, they're like, I don't understand. You know, it's just like, what does Bella Italia mean to Italian, right? So it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't speak to him in the way that it should. So we, for instance, like we changed that into this pasta makes you feel like your grandma made it, because the Italian grandma, the nonna, how they call it, it's kind of, in all the movies, you see like all these like nannies, grannies, just like making pasta, like homemade pasta. And that's kind of symbol for your childhood memories and for good homemade pasta. So we have to change it to that so that people in Italy understand that this is like a homemade traditional recipe. By saying Bella Italia, we didn't get anything out of it, so we had to change it. So that's a perfectly good example of what's localization. And you really have to speak to someone who is a native person who is living there, so they can tell you like, listen, I understand what you mean by this. Like, I don't understand the point with Bella Italia or some other phrases that don't make sense. And you really need to pay attention to that, because if you say Bella Italia, people will not understand what you mean. Maybe they will not even like it, and they will move on to the next listing. And it's a common, information that people have like 4 different tabs open with the same product when they browse Amazon. So if your product doesn't make the cut because you didn't understand, you didn't convey the right message to the client, they're just going to go on to the second tab and third tab and like find another product. So that's very important. You cannot just think that the same things are equally interesting, or you express things the same way on different marketplaces, or even like people don't like the same things on different marketplaces, as I previously said. And I would like to tell the story about like Starbucks, like Starbucks failure in Australia. I mean, everybody loves Starbucks, right? I mean, Frappuccinos, I mean, what's not to like there, right? But Australians, actually, they freaking hate Starbucks. And there's not a single Starbucks in Australia till this day. What happened is that Australia's coffee culture is more like similar to Italian. They like espresso, macchiato, shots of coffee, shots of espressos and stuff like that. They don't like the frappuccinos, the pour overs, like, 1 liter filter coffee. Like they hate it. And then Starbucks, they just went there. They're just like, well, we're Starbucks. Like, of course, everybody's going to buy coffee from us. And they just didn't do anything to research the market to understand that this is not the type of coffee that people want over there. They just didn't offer any type of like Australian specialty or anything. They were just doing their own thing that they're doing like in New York or Chicago or LA. And people hated it over there. And they also didn't like it because it was too accessible. There were too many of these Starbucks coffee shops. So what happened is that after a year, they had to close every single of those coffee shops and pack their bags and go. And so there is no Starbucks in Australia, which is quite interesting.
Wow, I actually didn't know that. There's always something cool to learn on here, let me tell you. So that's really cool information. Yeah. I did not know that there was not a Starbucks over there, or there was, but now there isn't. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about the different marketplaces that you translate for. And I mean, is it everywhere, all the marketplaces that Amazon sells, or is it only certain ones? And I really liked your example, by the way, when you were talking about with Italian, because there's different regions of Italy and things aren't exactly the same. So people, I think, need to understand that when they're looking at it. And same with Spanish, there's different like variations of words in Spanish. So maybe tell us a little bit about some of those maybe issues you've run into where you've seen people, they've got something translated, let's say for a particular region in either Spanish or Italian, and then they try to use it in different regions, probably Spanish even, especially because there's a lot more places that will, but excuse me, sorry about that. And then also just kind of cover the different regions that you are helping. So once again, I got Jana from YLT Translations. So be sure to hit that like and the subscribe button for us. I really appreciate that, especially with my new podcast. And Jana, take it away.
Sure. So yes, exactly. Spanish is a big problem because a lot of people want to expand to, let's say, Spanish in Europe, and then they use the listings that they used for, let's say, Mexico. So what the problem is, like when in Spanish in Europe, like when people read listings, they really, really don't like to see any of the South American Spanish in it. They're gonna get, I'm not gonna say word upset, but it just doesn't, fly in Europe, in Spain, and vice versa. Like in South America, it's just gonna sound weird, some of the words that you're using in Europe. And there are gonna be some differences, and people don't like it. So when you're comparing to like the British and the American English, I'm pretty sure like people don't mind when you use like a pint versus, I don't know, like a cup or something like in the States. But when it comes to Spanish, you really have to be careful what sort of Spanish you use where. It's not okay to take your Mexican Spanish and just gonna launch them in Spain, because people would not like to see South American Spanish in European Spanish listings. When it comes to the regions that we cover, we basically cover everything except Australia, Singapore, and India. We do absolutely everything. So we cover all the newest marketplaces in Europe, and the rest of Europe. So now we have 8 marketplaces, including Turkey. We have UAE, Mexico, Canada, and Saudi Arabia. Basically, that's it. And we cover all of that. And if there's going to be like a new launch of a new marketplace, we're probably going to be already forming team for that, because we have calls with Amazon. We really try to stay up to date with everything, because you have like sellers that approach us. They're like, they have thousands of products in like 1,000 categories. Of course, it's impossible to know all the regulations for all categories, but we really try to be, up to date with some like newest regulations, and things change like all the time. So, also what I don't really understand is like when you are, watching a webinar, like don't watch a webinar that's like 6 months old, because God knows if that person that's talking about a webinar, maybe these rules are not applicable anymore, or maybe this is now banned. So never watch any old material that you have out there online.
Yeah, that's a good tip for any of the old even podcasts like mine, because sometimes that information's changed. So obviously you want to keep watching the new podcast. So I agree with that 100%. So one thing I do want to discuss with you is that there's a lot of mistakes that sellers make, especially when they're transitioning from going selling in the US or Canada over to Europe. And I mean, you already covered a few of them, being, obviously with using Google Translate to translate articles or to translate, their listings, I meant to say. And that always is a big problem. But let's go over some of the other mistakes right after this quick break from our sponsor, GETIDA.
Today's episode is brought to you by GETIDA, the global leader in FBA auditing and reimbursements. Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics.
Yeah, so right after you hit that like and subscribe, head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. We do have a great special offer there for you. So once again, I got Jana Krekic, founder of YLT Translations, And we are today talking about how to scale your Amazon business on new marketplaces. And we were going to start covering some of the common mistakes that sellers make when they're transitioning into selling into, let's say, Europe or other markets outside the United States and Canada. And we covered already that, people obviously don't use Google Translate. That's good for quick, maybe communication when I'm trying to talk to somebody quickly and I don't have time to actually send it off. But when it comes to selling a product, I mean, you're talking money's involved here, right? You want to make money, you want to sell these items. There's a lot of pitfalls. So besides the Google Translate being a big hiccup for people, what are some of the other issues or mistakes that sellers make when they start expanding?
You know what's very interesting, Rob? There are so many sellers that are very, very big sellers. So we usually work with 7 to 8, 9-figure sellers, and when they contact you, and some of them they're like in Sephora, they're selling their brands like literally everywhere, also in retail, and you're just saying that these people, they are on top of their game, they know what they're doing. So what's the problem with them is like when they expand to international marketplaces, they're just expecting everything to be the same, but the reality is different. Like you are coping with a completely like different type of beast. Like there are cultural differences, language barriers, different mentalities. There's so many different aspects that you need to know about when you sell worldwide. And as you mentioned, like Google Translate is definitely one of the biggest mistakes. And the thing, people who don't want to Google Translate, they're just like, okay, I'm just gonna hire a translator. Let's have some like native translator and let's have them do the listing, and what's the problem with all of them? Translators, they translate paperwork, medical stuff, legal agreements and stuff like that. Common translators don't understand e-commerce. They're not e-commerce experts just like you are, and they don't understand what it needs to make a good sales copy. So when you are hiring someone or training someone, you have to understand that these people are not salespeople, but you need to train them how to make a good sales copy and what it's important, and tell them to have some liberty when doing that, because translators are taught to translate like things word by word and kind of stick to the text, stick to the original like 99%. And Amazon listing translations are quite the contrary, because you really have the liberty to just take the text and adjust it and localize it and make it sound different and better for the target marketplace. So this is number one mistake, that it's really not that difficult to teach anyone and to talk to a translator if you want to hire someone without Amazon experience. But this is something that people usually don't do. And thanks to this, we have like tons of work because we get to do like a lot of feedbacks and analysis of very badly written listings that are not performing well. And they're either done by Google Translate or just, translators that didn't use any keywords. The text sounds fine, but there are no keywords. So basically you can have like an amazingly written listing, but without the keywords, nobody's going to find your product. The product is not going to pop up and nobody's going to see it. So that's just money not well spent, literally. And you're leaving a lot of money on the table, but just by not hiring someone who knows how to do it. Second thing is, a lot of people, they translate keywords. Also very, very big sellers, they're like, let's just translate these keywords. Like here's a Google sheet and just do it. Use that Google Translate formula. And that's just not how it works, because even if you compare like UK and US keywords, they're going to be different. They're not going to be the same. So just imagine when like comparing it for German marketplace and other marketplaces, you have to do keyword research separately. You don't have to like a trained translator for that, because you don't want to give your Helium 10 account that you're paying like $500 to a random freelancer, right? But I'm sure that you can somehow find somebody in the team with the help of native translator to check what the terms mean. And whatever you're doing, you have to put the keyword in Amazon and see what products show up. Because if products don't, if something similar to a product doesn't show up, it means that it's not a good keyword and the translator didn't do a good job, because they would just translate it as it is. So that's the problem. And the third problem, I would say definitely localization, because people would translate things as Bella Italia as Bella Italia, and they would just translate some idioms as they are, which are probably non-existent in other languages, and it would not make much sense. One of the really good examples I just remembered is there was like this bonsai tree kit that we did, and it says like you have to have green. You don't have to have green fingers to have this plant grow or something like that. So when you translate, and we give this as a test. We used to give this as a test to our German translators to see if they're going to figure it out or not. Because when you translate green fingers as grüne Finger, which means green finger in German, it doesn't mean anything. In Germany, they use the word green thumbs, and this is how you have to translate it. So, that's something that a lot of very good translators didn't just think about at all.
Yeah.
And whoever did like green thumb went into the second circle, So it's very interesting, but also very, very important. That's why you need someone who's going to take care of that the right way.
Yeah. No, that's that's an interesting translation, actually. I think that can be translated a couple different ways. So, the really cool thing. Yeah. The really cool thing, and the reason I really wanted you on is like, and I'm kind of the same way. Jana, she gets to deal with a lot of companies. So she gets to see a lot of things going on with different listings, what's working, what's not, what needs to be translated correctly. And she's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to not just translations, but also some Amazon, information just in general, like for sellers. And, I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I think it's been almost 3 years I've been doing podcasts, luckily third time's a charm here, but, I've got to interview all kinds of different people, and we get to see, I get to hear about all these different tools and these different ways and methods of doing things. And it's so cool. So kind of quickly, because we do need to wrap up in a little bit here, and I want to make sure that we give a plug to you and how people can contact you. But before we do that, maybe like, is there a category that you've seen that maybe works well in UK or maybe even Germany or something that doesn't quite work as well in the United States from, some of the experiences you've dealt with?
Yes, I would say that wooden toys are incredibly popular in Germany. They're not doing so well in the States or in the UK, but in Germany, they are literally going through the roof. So if you are selling wooden toys, you have to be in Germany. So this is kind of exclusive. So I don't know how long this is going to be secret, but this is a top tip. As we've seen, a lot of people have amazing, amazing sales. Wooden toys, not plastic, not Paw Patrol, not any of these, but wooden toys. I think that's because Germans really value like eco-friendly products, and like big wooden toys are just kind of it's a green toy, and it also gives you that warmth that you had when maybe you were a kid and you were playing with your wooden toys, and now your kids can also play in your wooden toys, or if you're grandparents, you can also play with wooden toys with your grandkids that you kind of used, So they're playing this like sentimental plug. They're putting a lot of those in listings, and I think that's working like magic.
Yeah, that's a good one. I remember having a few toys when I was a kid that were wooden. That was pretty cool.
I remember. I love those.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not old enough when it comes to tin toys, because those are kind of a lot older than me. But yeah, I remember having wood toys, and even like the toys, there was some metal toys. Like I remember like some of the dump trucks, like for boys and stuff, those were still metal, which I don't know, maybe they still are a little bit, but probably more plastic nowadays. But anyways, not to get off subject. So obviously I'm talking to Jana. We're talking about how to scale your Amazon business on new marketplaces, and she's founder of YLT Translations. Jana, why don't you go ahead and first of all, give a plug for YLT Translations and tell everybody how they can get a hold of you. And because if they hear us on the podcast, and for everybody who's watching, I'll be sure to put her email and also the website below, but go ahead, Jana.
Sure. So YLT Translations is the biggest Amazon translation agency out there. We also work directly with Amazon. Amazon sends us also clients. So we really know what we're doing. We have a team of now 80 translators, and we do around 4,000 listings every month. If you have a listing that's underperforming, or maybe you're wondering what could be improved, feel free to reach out, as we offer absolutely free feedback analysis. And it's very thorough. So you're definitely going to see some low-hanging fruits in your listing that could be improved. If your listing is good, we're just going to tell you you're doing great. We're not going to, make it worse or better, like on purpose. If you guys want to reach out to me directly, you can do so at my email, Jana at ylt-translations.com. And feel free to like our Facebook page and like us on LinkedIn, because if you liked what I was talking about today, we always try to keep up to date, as I previously said, and we have like tons of really good posts and information that will definitely keep you intrigued in the international expansion world.
That's great. Yeah. So it's Jana, Jana at YLT-translations with an S on the end. Make sure you got that S on the end. Or you can head over to YLT-translations.com to be sure and, look it up there or look up their services. So Jana, one last question. Tell everybody a little something that they probably don't know about you.
Okay. I ran 7 half marathons, and I used to go to musical academy. I played piano for 15 years.
Wow. I didn't know that. That is super cool. But I do want you to share, at least tell everybody though, how many different languages you speak.
I speak six, including my mother tongue. Yeah.
And I always do this with Jana. So get ready. Tell me which language is the hardest to translate to speak. And then also say, Rob, I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Okay, definitely the most difficult pronunciation is for this language that the kids from this country, they don't speak proper language before they're 6. That's how difficult pronunciation is. And this country is Denmark. So Danish is one of the most difficult languages for pronunciation. So I'm going to say, Rob, vi ses om 2 år.
Excellent. Excellent.
Rob, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Awesome. And you will. And I'll get to see you too. It's been too long. And definitely big hugs when I see you. So we'll be heading over to Prosper, which is coming up. If you're listening to this past Prosper, I'm sorry, you probably missed a great show, because we're definitely going to be there having a good time. I know Jana will. So, well, Jana, obviously I love having you on, and I'm glad I got you on early this time. And everybody be sure to tune in. Yeah, thank you. And be sure everyone to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. I'll have new guests, unless there's a vacation or something like that, because I am going on vacation this year. But be sure to check out Sellernomics podcast. Head on over to GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. They are a sponsor of the show, and we really do appreciate them. And of course, I have to disclose, I am Chief Marketing Officer for GETIDA, which is just an incredible job. Jana, always a pleasure. So glad I got you on early this time. And the good thing is I'm going to have you on again, and it won't be the end, because I have the podcast now. So we'll definitely have Jana back on as things change, which they always do. Jana, thank you, and looking forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Yes, same here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Sellernomics podcast. Special thanks to our sponsor, GETIDA. Did you know that Amazon probably owes you money for FBA reimbursements? Get $400 in free FBA reimbursements at GETIDA.com/Sellernomics. Be sure to join us again next week for more great tips on how to grow your business. And thanks again for listening.